I think it's an interesting, if not sexy year for IPTV delivery. I think what we saw last year was a lot of people announcing services and demoing stuff on the show floor or in meeting rooms, which was sort of held together with string and MacBook Airs behind the scenes. I think this year we're actually seeing a lot of those guys showing real systems that they've deployed with their clients and partners. And you're seeing a lot of interest from those potential partners in future deployment of those systems. What's even more interesting to a degree is some of the announcements you've seen, not just at CES, but over the last 6 months, of people who were previously firmly entrenched in that sort of cable world, satellite world, or service provider world, saying, yeah, we'll use IP. We'll use it for catch-up, we'll use it for different devices, we'll unbundle our content from that traditional cable or satellite service and deliver that to you, Mr. Consumer, for $5, $10 a month.
So do you think the pipes are there, the distribution, what Cisco, what Ericsson, what Adobe, I mean, is it just a business decision now to deliver IP, or is it still a technical issue? Are there friction points?
There are still friction points. I mean, we are talking about massive multi-year investments here, both in the old infrastructure that these guys have got and what they're going to have to do in terms of retraining, re-engineering their processes, and moving to potentially a different business model altogether. A lot of the technology barriers have been overcome. We are looking back 5 years to when the original sort of IPTV services were deployed. They were really having to re-engineer the whole network just to get that to work, which is why it was so phenomenally expensive to implement. Now, with CDNs and the likes of Akamai and bolstering that network, it's pretty reliable, it's pretty robust. We have user authentication, we have distribution to multiple devices, we have virtually all devices able to get an app or a catch-up service that will get video onto them, and it works pretty well. So technologically, it's kind of there. But of course you have still got those legacy catalogs, that legacy infrastructure, those legacy sort of subscriber bases that aren't moving to IP just yet. But I think, as I was saying about the announcements this year, you're seeing many more people not questioning whether they'll move to IP, more a question of when they'll move to IP and what are the business drivers for that, rather than necessarily, well, the technology doesn't quite work yet.
Some business drivers has to do with analytics, particularly around OTT.
Yep.
Is that a problem? How could it be solved, or what do you hear?
It's, I mean, it depends how you're trying to make money from OTT. Obviously, if you're a subscription service, you need to know how many subscribers you've got, and you need to make sure that they're using the service enough to keep subscribing. But the per views, the number of screens is not quite as important. So, the Netflixes of this world, or even the service providers who are providing second screen services, the analytics is not that urgent. This is supplementary to their primary business. Of course, if you're starting to look at advertising supported services, that's where there is still a bit of a gap with OTT compared to traditional measuring on the TV impressions of adverts. And there is still some work to go there. The advertisers would certainly like more granularity in terms of, hey, I'm paying for this across multiple screens. Who's seeing it? Are they watching it all the way through? Am I really confident there's not too much fraud in there compared to the old TV model, which everybody admits isn't perfect, but people have got used to over years and years and years. So I think the analytics there becomes very key in terms of, hey, Mr. Advertiser, you should be getting onto our multi-screen platform, or you should be getting onto our over-the-top TV service, because these are the kind of numbers and the kind of people we can deliver through those services.
And for consumers and for publishers and distributors, the number of devices is sort of mind-boggling and continues to expand. How does the publishing broadcasters navigate through that, and who do you think some of the winners will be versus the Chromecast, Apple TV, Roku, the smart TVs? Will there be the game consoles? Will there be a winner? Will it just be completely decentralized? How will the device and device consumption develop, in your opinion?
You're absolutely right. I mean, there's probably another 50 streaming type devices announced at the show. It gets to the stage like the 4K TVs where, you know, one little box streaming TV looks much like another little box streaming TV. So it does get more and more complex. Set against that, you're obviously seeing the sort of the appification of those streaming services. So, you know, your Netflix or your BBC iPlayer is going to be on each of those devices. So from a consumer, as long as they can see that little catch-up button or that Netflix button or that Hulu button, they should be able to get into more or less the same experience on whichever device they're on. So that's from the consumer perspective. In terms of winners and losers, there are obviously very powerful devices like games consoles, which are there because the owner is specifically into one type of behavior, gaming. You know, you see it also with some of the powerful set-top boxes. Those are, you know, entertainment enthusiasts. Those will persevere because they serve a distinct need. I think where we are starting to see some cracks is around smart TV. There's been multiple deployments of multiple different operating systems. A number of the manufacturers here, again, have switched horses in terms of what their OS in their smart TV is going to be. And to the content owners and their partners that are developing those applications, that's worrying. You know, it's like, I can develop for this fantastic 4mm thick TV now, and in 3 months' time, the manufacturer is going to change that, going to switch horses, and all my development work is going to be wasted. Of course, the winners then become those people who are offering a level of abstraction between what the box is and what the application is, so that you can develop once and deploy across multiple boxes. So, you know, you've seen people like Acedo and Adobe to a degree offering that kind of framework whereby you can deploy those things relatively easily. Doesn't get rid of all that fragmentation. We'd be kidding ourselves if we thought it did, but it does simplify the tasks very significantly, particularly if you have some sort of central management of, oh, that box has slightly changed, let's update it centrally, let's monitor how those things are performing.
Where do you see the addressable, where specific ads are served to individuals in a more of a linear TV world, or a TV IP delivered TV?
Yeah. Where it starts with the analytics that we mentioned before. Obviously, being able to say who's watching, what their profile is, you know, what their disposable income and interests are, is a key starting point. The actual, when we're saying that the technology has been fixed, one of the areas where it's still very much sort of in play is around that sort of ad insertion, dynamic ad insertion, addressable advertising, which is actually far more complex than you might think, just by saying, oh, well, no, it's easy. I just take a chunk of 30 seconds of material and just drop it into that stream, or drop it into that DVR recorded program and update the adverts. It actually is quite a technical challenge from both the device perspective and from a network perspective. But you are seeing a big focus on that, obviously because the gains are potentially huge from a lot of the major, what I would call, video infrastructure providers. So the Ciscos, the Adobes, the Ericssons, they are focusing on that now that some of the more basic technology challenges have been overcome.